So, hello everyone, and happy National Poetry Month. And thank you for being with us for One Arts. It's both the National Poetry Month and the April reading. So, our featured poets, who you really should already know by now, are Barbara Crooker, Molly Fisk, Donna Hilbert, and Erin Murphy. And yes, we'll get into more details shortly. But let's just dig right into the reading. So, our first poet is Barbara. Barbara Crooker is the author of 12 chapbooks and 10 full length poetry collections. Honestly, I thought potentially more. Collections including Some Glad Morning from the Pitt Poetry Series, University of Pittsburgh Press, which is a wonderful press. I know they treat their authors very well. The Book of Kells, Slow Wreckage. That one's from Grayson. They're also terrific. And her awards include, is this true? A Grammy for as a spoken word finalist, which is incredible. An award from the W.B. Yeats Society of New York.
But only a finalist, not a win.
Okay, yeah, but an honor to be nominated, right? And, Grammys, pretty cool. And the Thomas Merton Poetry of the
Sure.
Sacred Award. Also, three Pennsylvania Council Fellowships in Literature. Barbara's work appears basically everywhere that work can be found, including the Bedford Introduction to Literature. And I will drop a link in the chat to Barbara's website where you can learn a whole bunch more about her and her work. Barbara, thank you for being here. And you're in Bethlehem right now, right?
Allentown, nearby.
Allentown, so close.
Sitting here in
Well, thank
Allentown.
you. Yes, in Billy Joel country.
Exactly. All right. You ready?
Oh, yes, please go right ahead.
So, in trying to figure out, and I want to thank you for inviting me, Mark, and it's a pleasure to be reading with Donna and Erin, who are two of my good poetry buddies, and then Molly, whose work I'm looking forward to learning about. I just thought I'd read new poems that have been newly published. So they don't have much to do with each other, but that's how I picked them. Elegy for my 1968 Volkswagen Beetle. It was red as a ladybird, and I had to learn to drive stick to make it go. The opposite of streamlined, curvy as a beach ball, as I was, newly pregnant, the summer of love, where we set off to the music of Simon and Garfunkel, searching for America. Did we find it in Haight Ashbury, where we stayed with friends from college, breaking into another friend's apartment to watch the moon landing? San Francisco, where someone broke into our bug, rifled through our stuff, and found nothing worth stealing. Thankfully, I didn't drop acid. Later, the baby died, and that guilt would have haunted me forever. My bell bottoms grew tight around the belly. I had to leave them unzipped, covered over with a gauzy top. I began to resemble the hood of the car, a pregnant roller skate. It took us across Death Valley, no air conditioning, and we didn't think to bring water. How young we truly were. After our marriage unraveled, we shared custody of both the car and our second daughter. But somehow it was never available when my classes met. So I had to hitchhike with a briefcase and a toddler who happily colored in blue books while my students wrote their essays. In its last year, I had to park facing downhill so I could pop the clutch to get started. That marriage was broken beyond repair, but you, faithful friend, kept on chugging on your four little cylinders, even on rutted roads, even on snow-packed hills. Okay, now we're going to really fast forward in my time a whole bunch, and I'm in my happy second marriage in this poem. And it's called The Taste of Things. And it's after this really wonderful independent movie. I think it was out maybe 2 years ago. And this is from the New York Times review of this movie. At the center of the world is a bittersweet kernel. All things pass away, and all great stories end. Love stories end, one way or another, in sadness. And that's Alyssa Wilkinson. Well, there we were, having breakfast in a garden in the village of Chablis, home of that famous wine, pale rivers of citrus, pears, minerals, crisp apple acids. Here, the grapes ripen slowly, accumulating sugar, the roots content in limestone soil. Ah, terroir. The morning air swam with roses and birdsong, the coffee dark and strong, the croissants light as April sunshine. Like fixing a photograph, I would have stopped time then, both of us in good health, the memory of a fine dinner, then love on the iron linen sheets. But nothing lasts forever. The stream rushes to the river that flows to the sea, the restless sea, always scrubbing its laundry on the rocky shore. You're gone. I'm in the shadow years. Soon I'll be memory too. But before darkness falls, I want to keep dancing. I want to raise a thin glass of straw-colored wine, lift it to the fading light. I want to watch the stars appear one by one as they take their position on the black stage. I want to believe love is still possible, even though the odds are against me. On my plate is a Népois, the king of cheeses, an Abbaye de Situ from Cistercian monks, and a Côte d'Or, the golden coast, the color that cloaks the vines just after harvest. I will pick up this heavy silver knife and fork and slowly consume every creamy bite and let my mouth bloom forth in flowers. And this is a hard time we're living through. But I love this quote from David Hockney. Do remember, they can't cancel spring. For my grandchildren, I am so sorry. We tried, but the wrong people were elected. We tried, but no matter how much we recycled, the mountains of plastic grew, as did the gyre in the North Atlantic. And then there were microplastics in all our food. We could have put solar panels on our roofs, or rather we did, your grandfather and I, but did it make a difference? We noticed how hot the summers were getting, but was there any urgency? Now fire has been granted a season of its own, along with hurricanes. Add in tornadoes and earthquakes, and no part of the country is safe. I'm sorry. The polar bears are going along with the bees. We failed to convince Big Ag to give up its addiction to glyphosate and monoculture farming, oceans of golden grain with nary a weed in sight. No milkweed for monarchs, how we miss their stained glass wings, and fireflies whose tiny green sequins decorated summer nights. The moon was obscured by hazardous air, took center stage in the star-spangled sky. We sat on the porch, swaying in the fragrant dark, scented by roses and lilies, knowing we were about to lose everything, but powerless to stop it. Sorry, none of these are particularly cheerful. Well, this one might be. Everything around us is ephemeral. Today, a cardinal poured out of the woods, redder than arterial blood. When my husband died, I got cards saying, this slash of scarlet is a loved one returning, but I know it's just a bird and he isn't coming back. This January sky has softened, a hint of early spring. Every item in the news is dire, so I turn it off, try to remember that nothing lasts, that the iciest winter bleeds into spring, spring into summer, etc., etc., until we alter the climate so much that everything burns. Please, let me be wrong about this. Let every redbird find his olive drab mate. Let them build twiggy nests, fill them with speckled eggs, and let those nestlings flap their unsteady wings, disappear in the hedgerow, then lift to the sky. And I wanted to read three that were in One Art most recently, so here we go. These are also in my 11th book, which will come out in 2027 from Fernwood. The Couple. Under a cloud of COVID restrictions, ending up on the shores of hospice, the couple set out in their canoe. He was in the stern, steering as usual. She was in the bow, looking for hazards. The waves piled up. She began to bail while never letting go of his hand. The journey lasted 4 nights, darkness splashing over the gunwales. He grew tired. She kept paddling. Eventually, they started to drift with the current, which took him out with the tide and then sent him down gently on the farthest shore. The Dream, and this is based on a painting by Marc Chagall. The prone artist with the palette in the bottom of this painting is conjuring up our wedding. A snapshot of us just floated up on Facebook. It's our anniversary. Were we ever really that young? You in your powder blue leisure suit, me in my Gunny Sacks by Jessica McClintock prairie dress. In this painting is what came later, Le Tour Eiffel, La Seine, her arched bridges, us in La Belle France. This is happiness enclosed in the bubble of the full moon. Nobody thinks about what comes next, how one day one of us will sleep alone. But though I'm blue, sometimes you come to me in dreams, and my heart is infused with 1,000 petals of the rose-colored dawn. 3 years later, I know you're gone, but my body remembers, especially at night when we curled into each other, bears in a den, silverware in a drawer. Plaid pajamas, worn flannel sheets, we made our own sort of nest in the winter dark. The moon, a ball of frost, floated outside. Some nights we heard the ghostly notes of great horned owls as they courted, calling to each other, you, the way I hear you calling my name, even though you are not here. And I'll end with another new poem. This wasn't in One Art, but it appeared somewhere. The Sun. Look at the sun coming to us every morning fresh as a newly laid egg, coddled in a nest of clouds. How steadily it beams, faithful as a Labrador retriever or a ticking watch. It doesn't strive or try to accrue power at the detriment of its neighbors. It doesn't look for fleeting fame, for who is more famous than the sun? It's ready, steady kilowattage. When I hit solar panels, I learned that the sun is always there, even in a blizzard, as I watch the tiny dials spin, recording their units. The world is falling apart, friends are leaving, but here comes the sun, spilling its paint can of light on everyone. Even when it sinks behind the dark hills, you know it will return, a buttercup shining in the sky's blue field. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. That was wonderful. And you wrapped around that set perfectly. Went from the moon to the sun. So there we are. Now, Barbara mentioned the original moon landing, which we still don't know if that one was actually real, but I'm pretty sure that the Artemis 2 mission probably did just happen. And those are pretty stunning photos, right? It was like a nice little break from all the craziness in the world and, threats to, destroy an entire civilization. So instead, we got to think about awe and wonder for a little bit, and that was really nice. And yeah, gotta appreciate the big picture. And yeah, so who is more famous than the sun? Good question. I like that. It's got me thinking. So thank you again, Barbara, and thank you for reading some poems that were in One Art. I appreciate it. Our next featured reader is Molly Fisk. Molly is author of The More Difficult Beauty, Listening to Water, 5 volumes of radio commentary, and she also edited the California Fire and Water, a Climate Crisis anthology, which comes up all the time in One Art readings and just in general. It's a lot of West Coast poets that were in there. She's also an Academy of American Poets Laureate Fellow. Her historical novel in verse Walking Wheel is just out from Red Hen Press. It's a book that I think is a little bit hard to pin down, though I would say it's good for fans of something like Marilyn Robinson's Gilead seems about right to me. So if you're a Marilyn Robinson fan, I think you would get a kick out of this novel in verse. And I'll drop a link in the chat with more information on Molly's website. Molly, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Gilead, Lord, Lord. This is the hardback cover, which looks a lot like the soft cover. It's been out for 4 days. And it's never been in any lit mags because it's linked poems. It's a novel in verse set in 1875. I'm going to read you some poems. They're chronological, but there's a lot of skipping in between them. This is basically a love story between two young people and the first year of their marriage, kind of setting up house and being together. And I wanted to write something that was not dramatic. So it's about ordinary life, but sometimes dramatic things happen in ordinary life. And I have been working on it pretty much for 30 years. I didn't think it was a book at first. And so once I decided I better make a book out of it, I had about 50 poems. I had to go back and figure out the continuity, which was a pain in the neck. This is called Hawk. They have ridden in the wagon all this first day, the memory of last night on the hotel's white sheets, like birdsong in the air around them. He glances at her face from time to time, half hidden under the straw bonnet, trying to understand how a girl he's known all his life could have turned into this woman, quiet on the seat beside him, or sometimes humming a little tune, looking so unremarkable in her gingham dress covered with travel dust, sometimes asking a question about the house he's built her, what kind of porch, how far is the spring, and has he planted any trees yet for fruit or shade? He answers. He watches her hands folded in her lap and notices her boot's brown toe peeking out from under the skirt, sometimes tapping as she hums. The shadow of her lashes against her cheek. In his mind, the white waves of her skin are breaking over him. Her hair is loose across his face. He can't stop the wagon and take her into his arms. They have too far to go. Then she turns to watch a hawk soaring above them and leans into his shoulder, the straw hat grazing his jaw. Without speaking, he reaches his arm around her waist. She doesn't start. Her hand covers his. The hawk dives into the grass just beyond the creaking wagon and comes up with a wriggling snake. Her body tenses a little and softens against him. Glad that snake didn't spook the mules, he says. Remember the ones in Potter's Creek swimming with their heads full out of the water? I do, she says, and smiles. I remember more than that. You boys splashing like drowning oxen, and the mosquitoes biting so. It is afternoon. They will drive until the darkness overtakes them and stop for the night. Black Creek. They are racing summer. He goes off at dawn into the trees, and his axe rings all day, felling the straight pines, limbing them up, chopping the waste into stove lengths and kindling. She joins him in the afternoons to load the wagon bed with fuel, and then they saw and saw until her hands can scarcely hold their grip and her shoulders ache. Her skin has worn raw. At night she wraps her palms in strips of rag dipped in fat and a pinch of salt. It stings, but brings the calluses on faster. They sit on the porch steps in mid-July twilight, tossing a stick for the dog until even he tires, falls to the ground at their feet, his lolling tongue the color of half-ripe berries, the ones that hang on their arched canes above Black Creek. She's never built a barn, just made 100 pies in her mother's stove to feed the builders. She does not count the boards they've sawn, fearing the number will lower her spirits too far for revival. I could eat half a pie myself, she thinks, looking out across the yard, if only I could keep my head up long enough. He watches exhaustion overtake her, draws her head to his chest, and lets her sleep. Paper wasps. Miles reaches up into the shed's dark rafters for the handle of his scythe and hears a soft thump as something is dislodged beyond it and hits the dirt floor. With no warning, he's enveloped in a swarm of angry wasps. He staggers out the door, batting them away from his face and yelling. Phoebe, washing the cabin's floor, starts up in fear at the panic in his voice. At one look, she carries the heavy bucket outside and flings the dirty water over him. This forestalls the wasps only momentarily, but long enough for Phoebe to pull Miles inside and close the door. She opens the stove's flue to let smoke into the room, which will eventually repel any wasp still clinging to his clothes. He is moaning, stung and swelling everywhere. Eyelids, earlobes, lips and neck, cheeks, nose and chin, the back of his hands. Phoebe has begun a repeated litany of, oh no, and hears herself, makes herself change it to, oh, Miles. She pats his poor face dry and makes a paste of flour, water, and baking soda, the rising agent she is short on. Slathers it over his bubbled skin, avoiding eyes and nostrils. She plucks the soporific wasps off his shirt and trouser legs and stomps them under her feet. Then she reaches to the shelf and brings down the whiskey, tips Miles's head back and pours a measure into his mouth. He splutters but gets it down and moans again. Miles, she says urgently, you must lie still. I have to see if the chickens are alive and the goats. He mumbles something she can't make out. Again, take hot coals with the shovel, he breathes out, and be careful. Small disasters. What they drink. Mostly strong boiled coffee, some goat's milk, also water from Black Creek or the spring behind the house, tea of chamomile used to settle the stomach, and peppermint, spearmint, catmint for sleep, herbs she brought from her mother's garden to transplant. 4 jars of elderberry wine and 2 of applejack, which men like, for company if they ever have any. And he has some corn liquor stashed down by the creek that he hasn't told her about. I'm not sure how many of you know the origin of the phrase, Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. This is called bathing. On Saturday nights, Phoebe and Miles take their weekly bath. This is one of the secret luxuries of their marriage, only two bodies to be cleaned in the steaming water rather than the multitudes at home. Phoebe hauls the first two buckets and builds the fire up in the stove. The kettles hiss a little, and the cabin's air gathers humidity. Miles hauls the next and strips as Phoebe pours the hot water into her wash tub and refills the kettles with what he's carried. Before he steps in, his body stark white where his clothes have covered him, and acorn brown at his neck and forearms, which have been bare. Phoebe pours in another measure of cold. She hands him a square of the soap she's made, scented with mint from her mother's garden, a cooling odor. He rubs its harsh surface down his legs and scrubs his feet, wets arms and chest, shoulders, lathers the brown hair of his groin and thighs. Phoebe pours water from the kettles, not fully hot yet, over his hair, down his back, and soaps and rinses. Gradually, his skin loses its deep brown as grime and the salts of his body are sluiced away, and his white parts become rosy with heat. When he is done, she stands ready in her shift. She empties the kettles into the tub and steps in, slipping the cotton over her head. While Miles dries his back and legs, he watches the way she bends and straightens, attending to toes, heels, under her arms and breasts, the slight moon shape her belly makes now, her long white flanks, her face. He soaps her back for her and pours the rinse water over her hair twice, three times, her neck arched back and her eyes closed. These rituals almost always end in their bed with tongues and minty fingertips, but not before she has dried herself, showing him the apple of her bottom and the dark V of hair veiling what's between her legs. He almost cannot bear the exquisiteness of waiting as she dries her hair beside the stove, so he walks out naked to the porch and hurls the cooling wash water over the rail. Thank you.
That was terrific. Thank you, Molly. I was thinking as you were reading, since I had a chance to read the book in advance, um, the language and the particular images that really stuck with me that came back as you were reading it. I was surprised at the moments that stuck out. So that was really a joy. Thank you. And I hope everyone will get a copy now that it's widely available. We will get a link in the chat for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure. So next up, we have Donna Hilbert, no stranger to one art. Donna's latest book is Enormous Blue Umbrella, which is right here, from Moontide Press, which came out in 2025. Donna's work has appeared in many journals and broadcasts, including Eclectica, Gyroscope, Rattle, Chillinigig, One Art, TS Poetry, Verse Daily, Vox Populi, The Writer's Almanac, and quite a lot of anthologies such as Boomer Girls, The Widow's Handbook, The Poetry of Presence, Volumes 1 and 2, which I love, several of James Cruz's anthologies, which I highly recommend, and Donna writes and leads workshops from her home base in Long Beach. And I'll drop some links in the chat. A couple of these are actually available from our One Arts partner, the Poetry Shop, so I can link to the Poetry Shop books there. Thanks so much for being here, Donna.
What a pleasure to be here, and what a pleasure to read with the wonderful poets. And I also have a poem in California, Molly Fisk's anthology, and one in the work anthology that Erin. So I love anthologies. And most of the poems I'm going to read today have been published in One Art or other places, and most of them are new and will be in my next book, whatever that turns out to be. Yay. And then I've snuck in a couple from Enormous Blue Umbrella, and I like to end with the title poem from my last new one selected. So that's my plan. Yep, you've got a first edition of that one. Um, done. Okay, I think we're living in the era of interrobang. And so I'm going to begin with interrobang. I love the word, not in the way I love blossom, which contains both bosom and bloom, signifying beauty, nourishment, and pleasure within. Interrobang, with just two marks, shouts, "What the F?" without ever spelling anything out. I don't think a day goes by that I'm not screaming that. I don't scream in Terabang. I spell it out because I'm nasty. Enormous blue umbrella. Enormous, sad, and blue, this umbrella we walk beneath. It's winter still, but who could tell with sky so poignant blue it stings the eye, and merely a tinge of cold informs the air. Passers-by don't seem to notice the mountain's sharp outline beyond the bayside homes. And across the boulevard, across the sand, beyond the stranded ships, Catalina shines like tinfoil. It's the walkers I wonder about. Sad faces, our caps pulled down, moving fast. No place special to go. So fierce to get there. One thing you'll know if you read my poems that pretty much all I do is walk and eat and whatever, and read. You know, it's good. That's what I want to do. Walking the beach, I think of Mr. Emerson. It begins with an epigraph. I don't care what I see outside. My vision is within. Here is where the birds sing. Here is where the sky is blue. E.M. Forster from A Room with a View, which I dearly love this movie. I wish it were so with me, but I do need a room with a view, and also a walk on the beach, where terns and all manner of gulls swarm and squawk, where pelicans fly in and dive for breakfast, and herons patiently wait. If Grace walks with me, I might spot a dolphin or two, or a shark surfacing for a moment, and the purse of my heart will widen with wonder enough to hold fast another day. Stick to poetry and art. A lady in my neighborhood screams at me when I rain fury on the new regime. He's your president. Get used to it. Stick to poetry and art. Perhaps the screaming lady has a point. Perhaps she's read John Keats. Beauty is truth, truth, beauty. That's all ye need to know. Sadly, it's just not so. We are not mere figures etched upon an urn, but living creatures watching beauty burn. I get mad all over again every time I think about that. Sometimes it's hard to love the world. Sometimes it's hard to love the world, but not the earth. Not hard to love the earth, suffering through no fault of its own. Sometimes it's hard to love the world of humans who rack the earth as if it were their own. It's not hard to love the children of the world, but it's hard to save them, who suffer from failures whose makings not their own. It's hard to love the world that doesn't love its children enough to save them, even when their heads are bowed and praying in their church, their school, their home. Good Friday. This was recently published in Eclectica. Morning walk, sprinkle of rain on my face. I see the famous swimmer adjust her cap and step into the water. A dozen toddlers and bigger small kids pour from the Airbnb next door to cartwheel on the sand. Back at my desk, I think of Adam Zagajewski's great poem, Good Friday in the Tunnels of the Metro, which leads to Van Gogh's face on the following page. Then Vincent, Oh Starry, Starry Night, peels from my music app shuffle. Oh swimmers, oh cartwheels, oh synchronic song. I might believe in good after all. And I do believe in good. The good that we see here today. People making art, people making poetry, brilliant editors, brilliant poets. That's the good I believe in. Ribolita. I praise the way you save stale bread, left on the shelf too long. Rinds of Parmesan, tough to grate. Old greens, not crisp enough for salad, but fine for soup, reboiled from what's on hand. I love the way you salvage bruised tomato, sprouting onion, imperfect squash, laying no morsel to mold, nothing to waste, filling each space with aroma of soup, saying supper, manja, come, eat, come safely, come home. That was from Enormous Blue Umbrella, as is the next poem. And I would like to have great indebtedness to all my dear friends who have saved me in times of unspeakable tragedy. And that's what this poem's about. Bad weather. I have been the fallen bird, waiting for the ride that never came, walking home in beating rain. I have been the forlorn traveler, familiar in the corridors of waiting. I have been the fallen bird, pulled out of grief's bad weather, caressed and held together, spoon-fed until I wish to die, then live again. We're nearing the end. Two more. Chalice. I want to empty my chalice of grief and be like the neighbor's two dogs, early this morning, unleashed on the warm and sun-strewn beach. So alive in their streamlined bodies, running, sniffing, circling, as if they'd never seen sand before, as if the earth were new and meant for frolic, as if the only purpose in life were to stir everlasting, uncontainable mirth. Okay. Gravity. What binds me to the earth are the hands of my children as I hold my mother, holding her mother, back to the mother who begat us all. This is gravity. This is why we call the earth mother, why all rising is a miracle. Thank you.
Such a beautiful reading, Donna. You can see in the comments that people are very excited and loving your work and getting emotional. For anyone who doesn't know, Donna is certainly one of the most published authors in One Art, and yeah, I think you're certainly up there for a One Art top fan, as I often say. So
What art is my beating heart? What can I say?
so sweet. So a great joy to have you read for us today.
Great
Uh,
choice, joy to be here. Absolute
Thank you so much, Donna.
privilege. Thank you.
And last, certainly not least, we have Erin Murphy. And I failed to say at the outset that Erin might have some kind of an update for us. Erin guest edited the Book of Jobs, Poems About Work for One Art. I'll put a link in the chat about that. But Erin is author and editor of more than a dozen books, including, oh, I have it right here, Human Resources, which is really cool. And all of Erin's books are just super creative and different. Also, Fluent in Blue, winner of the 2025 American Book Fest Best Book Award. Her book, Mother as Conjunction, is a collection of lyric essays that's actually out now, right? In Harbor editions. And I know I believe there's another book in the works. Oh yeah, there we go. So that's Mother is Conjunction. She has worked in Ecotone, Women's Studies Quarterly, Best of Brevity, Best Microfiction, which One Art nominated Erin for just the previous year. And yeah. Also anthologies from Random House, Bloomsbury, St. Martin's, and other presses. Erin serves as poetry editor for the Somerset Review and is a professor of English at Penn State's Altoona campus. And I'll drop a link to Erin's website. And yeah, I hope if you haven't done so already that you'll look at the Book of Jobs on One Art's website, and it's forthcoming from a subsidiary of Penn State University's books. Erin, thanks so much.
Thank you so much. It's such a joy to read with some of my favorite poets today. So thank you, Barbara, Molly, and Donna. Great to see you all. And great to see some friends in the crowd. I see Margie and Francine and Dana and Kelly and Betsy and other people I know through your work and names, including from the Book of Jobs, Poems About Work. The update is that I just recently submitted the third round of proofs and edits. And now they're going into so that portion is finished, and now they're going into the online and accessibility portion of things where they have links and text to voice options. So it's all that technical coding stuff that I know nothing about, and I'm glad the Penn State folks are working on it. So should be soon. I'm hoping it'll be released before the end of the semester, which for us is only, less than a month away. So we'll see. We will update everyone. Um, I was just thinking, listening to you all, that one of the best parts of a Zoom reading is the chat. Can you imagine if we were in person and every time you liked a line, you just like screamed it out like during the reading, all of us at once screaming out different lines? Like that wouldn't be possible, but it's really cool in a Zoom reading to just follow the chat of all the things that really resonate with people, the different images. It's kind of like the best part of Facebook is birthdays, right? When everybody wishes you happy birthday. The best part of Zoom readings is the chat. I am going to read one piece from each of my recent collections. And then also at the end, I'm going to have a little cover reveal for my new and selected poems that I just received yesterday. And you guys will be the first audience to see it. I haven't even posted it on any social media. I'm also going to break the rules. I'm going to start with an essay. So it's a lyric essay. Mark and I have had a lot of great discussions about the sort of blurring of genre generic boundaries. And these essays, they're lyric essays and they do blur those boundaries. This one is a braided essay and it's called Re-Entry. The one thing you need to know is that it takes place right after the peak of the pandemic. Re-entry. On the first hit by the first batter in the first inning of our first game since the start of the pandemic, a ball soars over the outfield wall and into the face of a boy beside us. 1 minute we're sipping beer in minor league seats. The next we hear a woman scream. When astronauts return to Earth, gravity grabs them like a mugger, dragging their bodies through a furnace pounded by sledgehammers. Then the parachute opens and rocks them gently like a swing. When I was in fifth grade, a man eager to date our mother invited her, my 4-year-old brother, and me on his business trip to LA. He took us to a taping of my favorite show, The Dating Game, in which a bachelorette quizzes eligible men hidden from her view. We sat on the top row of bleacher seats against a brick wall. On the first question of the first round, my brother leaned back against the wall, which turned out to be a flimsy trompe-l'oeil curtain. He fell 20 feet, landing face first on a concrete floor. A soft landing for astronauts isn't soft at all. It's more like a head-on collision with a Mack truck. They brace for it by jamming their tongues behind their teeth, and then, bam. Blood spread under my brother's motionless body. My mother tried to jump after him. Other audience members held her back. Back on Earth after space travel, everything is heavy. Your watch, your own hands. What's yours is no longer yours. Next week, my brother and I will, my brother, oh, that's a little Freudian. My husband and I will return to campus after teaching online for 18 months. We'll lecture in masks, reading our students' expressions through their eyes. Maybe we've grown too fond of orbiting our old lives. The night my brother fell, I sat alone in the ER waiting room, not knowing if he was alive or dead. Sometime past midnight, the businessman brought me vending machine Doritos. He seemed irritated. After the ball hits the boy, he looks stunned, probably in shock. His cheek turns a deep maroon, like Bordelaise sauce seeping through cheesecloth. Possible fracture, concussion, says the EMT. He asks the boy's age. 8, the mother says, and then, I mean 9. Today's his birthday. It's his birthday, she repeats, as if this should shield him. Somewhere in a Hollywood warehouse, there's an unedited recording of a young woman in yellow bell-bottoms asking a prospective mate if he's a morning person or a night owl. Before the man can answer, before the neon blur ambulance ride, before the ICU and MRI, before the discharge instructions to wake the boy every 2 hours, before the businessman slips from our lives like a lost ticket stub, before the boy recovers and goes on to have dates and kids of his own, a daughter and younger son, and before the hypersonic trip through 4 decades. There is a piercing moan that can only come from the dark galaxy of a mother's lungs. So that's from Mother's Conjunction that came out in January from Harbor Editions. That's a collection of lyric essays. This next poem is from Fluent in Blue, which came out in 2024. And this poem won the Rattle Poetry Prize Reader's Choice Award. So thank you to any of you who might have read and might have voted for my poem. It's called The Internet of Things, and I became very intrigued by this phrase as it started popping up in the news and in some of my colleagues' publications because it's one of those words that sounds like it says like nothing at all and like everything. It's like the Internet of Things. It's like it's everything. And so I was intrigued by that and did a little more reading about it. And if you're not familiar with it, it's an economics term, and it's the networking capability that allows information to be sent and received by objects and devices. So it's basically the way all of our gadgets like talk to each other, right? The Internet of Things. The low tide riverbed silt of things. The cloud-swept distant hill of things. The open bedroom window in spring of things. The moonlit cricket symphony of things. The pitter-patter tin roof rain of things. The 50-year marriage loose skin of things. The clipped winter light of things. The stippled lymph node of things. The grief. Oh, the grief. The brief, ecstatic flight of things. So this is a catalog poem, a list poem, and if you're interested in catalog poems, Mark curated a craft essay of mine for Cleaver magazine. I don't know if maybe you can pop that in the chat, Mark. It's called All the Things in Cleaver magazine. This next poem is from Human Resources, which Mark mentioned. This collection came out in June, this past June. It's a book of documentary poems about labor and employment. And if you're interested in documentary poems, I've co-edited an anthology that's coming out from Wesleyan University Press early next spring, 2027, that I'm co-editing with Koya Fagan Maples. So check that out. That's going to be an amazing book. That's in press right now. Any fans of Gilligan's Island might recognize a character in this poem. It's called Shit Show. Shit show should be one word, is a thought I've had at least 3 times this week. Not shit stop show, as the dictionaries and autocorrect insist. What do they know? Shit is not modifying show. It is the show, and the show is shit. Tarry dung, inexorable excrement. Yesterday, for example, we saw an elderly man trying to exit, I know, disembark a luxury sailboat. Unhinged on one side, the sliver of dock became, with each step, a horizontal seesaw, the already unsteady man teetering left, right, left. Those of us sipping margaritas at the nearby tiki bar gasped, but did not help. Collectively, we did that thing where you faux lunge with no intention of actually budging. Sure, class was at play. A man with a toy worth more than the homes some of us were lucky enough to almost own. Not it. Not it. Who among us didn't secretly want to see this Thurston Howell III pitch into the brackish bay below? Which of us was the show? Which the shit? And speaking of shit shows, this next poem is called Not Ice. There's an epigraph from CNN from this past January. Homeland Security officials told disaster response staff to avoid using the word ice in public messaging about this week's massive winter storm out of concern that the word could spark online mockery given the ongoing controversy surrounding U.S. immigration and customs enforcement, also known as ICE. Not ice. It's frozen water, not ice. We have mouses, not mice. Say 2 times, not twice. Your kid's hair may be lousy, but it's not crawling with lice. Predators lure, but do not entice. Even the city in France must change its spelling to Nice, Niece, instead of Nice, which looks like nice. Casinos don't use dice. From now on, the plural of die is dies. Take your chances at the craps table, on the sidewalk, in your own car or home. Believe what they say you saw with your own eyes. And I'm going to close with a couple of demi-sonnets from my new and selected poems. And this is the cover reveal. Swoon, new and selected poems. I just love the covers. Forthcoming from Grayson Books. Should be out soon, like within the next few weeks. So the new part of this book, they're demi-sonnets, which is a form I created in 2009, 7 lines, so half of a sonnet. If you're interested in learning more about demi-sonnets, I'm going to be teaching a workshop on how to write a demi-sonnet on June 11th, right? Thursday, June 11th, 6 to 8 p.m. through One Art. So I'm sure Mark will pop that registration link in the chat. I did it a couple years ago, and we had a lot of fun. So I'm hoping to see some of you guys there. Um, I think the only thing you really need to know about these poems from the new and selected is these new poems. They're abecedarian poems, so they go in alphabetical order, and they all connect in some way to literary terms in this section of the book. So this one is called Found Poem. Painters transformed a bungalow from gray to marigold, then learned they'd painted the wrong home. The crew loaded their truck and fled the scene. After a gray day at desks the color of dust, the owners smiled, pulling into the drive, each assuming the other had arranged this bright surprise. Sometimes even a gray world gives you just what you need. And this is my last poem, Metaphor. The night of the closest supermoon in 70 years, I scrolled through Facebook posts of friends' photos. Peter's was best. The moon floated above a red barn in roaring spring, like an illuminated balloon without a string. I'm ashamed to say how long it took me to look outside at the real thing. Thank you.
Spectacular, Erin. And the moon returns.
Full
It's just,
circle, back to
yep,
Barbara.
exactly. We're just gonna hone in on the moon today. So everyone will get excited for tonight's moon, I suppose. That was incredible. There are far too many links in the chat. I'm sure it was slightly overwhelming, but there's a lot to share. Yes, I hope some of you may consider coming out for Erin's demi-sonnet workshop. It will be great fun. As you can tell, Erin is always great fun. Excited about the Book of Jobs coming out. That'll be really cool. And so much. And a new and selected from Grayson. And Grayson puts together excellent anthologies and books in general. But I love that they do anthologies and selecteds. So thank you to all of our featured readers. That was spectacular. I'm going to stop recording now and then we can all chat.